Good afternoon, everybody. Director Tom Hackney, Director of Investigations and Homeland Security with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. This afternoon, about 1:30 p.m., officers were dispatched to a burglary in progress in the 800 block of West 30th Street. Now, this kind of occurred as the homeowner of this residence in question had received a call from his two kids who had reported to him that two males were at the door, knocking on the door and ringing the doorbell. This is kind of important because yesterday, the same homeowner was a victim of a burglary where guns were taken from his residence. So he left his two teenage children home today. They call him, report that these males are knocking at the door. He tells them to hang up with him and call the police. Well, as they're relaying the story to him, they tell him that these guys have now broken into the house. He hangs up with his children, calls 911. The children call 911. He leaves work and comes home. So the call is dispatched to officers, and as the homeowner is arriving, our JSO officers are arriving at about the same time. They have a conversation with each other very briefly, and the officer splits from the homeowner and moves to the side of the residence. As the officer is moving down Brick Street, which is where the side of the residence is, he looks and sees one of the subjects exiting an open window. Officer pulls his taser and begins giving verbal commands to the subject to comply, to give up, get on the ground. That male refuses to comply with the officer's orders. The officer is then kind of moving around the corner where he can get a better view of the subject. At that time, the officer receives gunfire from the location where the subject was. It's kind of important that in this backyard, there's a car, a truck, a large gas grill. There's a lot of items that the subject was kind of moving in and around from. So the officer transitions from his taser to his firearm, fires at the subject. At that same time, he sees a second subject come from behind the truck. Again, the officer's giving verbal commands for them to stop, get on the ground, failure to do so by the subjects. Officer moves location, receives another series of shots coming from their location where the subjects were. The officer returns fire again at that point in time. Loses sight of where the subjects are, and at about this same time, additional officers are arriving at the scene. As the extra officers are arriving, they find the homeowner and the next door neighbor to the front of the house has one of the subjects at gunpoint in the front yard. Now, it should be noted that the homeowner actually fired shots at the subjects as well. So this has been this afternoon a detective going through this scene, trying to sort through the details to get a clear picture of actually what went on, which is some of the reason that it's taken us a while to sort through those details. So we are working now to determine what exactly occurred. Now, the subject that was caught by the homeowner did have a gunshot wound to his shoulder. He was transported to UF Health, and it's a minor injury and expected to be released this afternoon. But again, we're trying to make determinations as to who shot that burglary suspect, be it the homeowner or our officer. There is an outstanding subject that was the second subject from the burglary. That calls Duval County School Board Police to shut down Brentwood Elementary School this afternoon. Again, there are a lot of details, a lot of moving parts to this case. We're still, again, trying to work through the details. The officer involved in this case is 10-year veteran Matthew Kruger. As per our standard policy, he's been placed on administrative leave. Tomorrow morning at about 10:30, I'm going to hold another news conference, get the identity of the subject that we have in custody, get some more details about this case, and can release a little bit more to you at that point in time. I mention this most every time I do these. The work of a police officer is a dangerous job. This certainly highlights this, that he's responding to this call. It also should be pointed out that the immediate action of this officer was to try to use a less lethal form to gain compliance. The subjects involved in this case shouldn't have been breaking into a house, but should have been listening to the officer when he gave him lawful commands. That officer was forced at that point in time, receiving gunfire. His life's in danger. He did what he needed to do to protect himself and protect the homeowner and the rest of the residents in the neighborhood. Again, it's a dangerous job. Men and women on the streets of Jacksonville that do this job every day are faced with this same kind of danger. My hats are off to them for doing it. It is dangerous. But I can take a few questions if you have it.
Is there a description of that second suspect?
He's thought to be a young black male with tan shorts and a dark-colored shirt. He did have a red beanie cap on when he did the burglary, but we've actually recovered that in the next-door neighbor's yard, so he now doesn't have that. He's out there. We'd like to know where he is, and certainly if anybody has any information as to this, they can remain anonymous. They can call Crime Stoppers at 1-866-845-TIPS. We'd love to hear what anybody has information-wise to this.
The owner was burglarized a couple of days beforehand. Did the suspects use the same guns that they took from his home?
It's a very good question. It's part of what we will look into. The subject that we had in custody at the hospital reported to me that he's been cooperative with us, so I may have some more details about that tomorrow morning. But that's certainly a logical thought that it would be.
And lastly, how is that homeowner and the children doing tonight?
They're very shaken up. I mean, first of all, just to be a victim of a burglary, it's disturbing enough to have somebody in your house going through your things, taking your things. Secondly, when this happens a second day in a row, you know, the circumstances that this man's kids are there by themselves, and they're older, they're 15, 16-year-old kids, so it's not inappropriate that they would be there by themselves. But when you get that call the day after a burglary saying, hey, there's two guys knocking at the door trying to get in, and then you get that horrifying note that they've actually made it inside the house, that's enough to scare anybody.
And these are the same guys that came back again?
Well, we don't know that. That's, you know, you can make some assumptions that maybe the job wasn't done the day before, but that's again, part of what we're going to look at.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
y'all very
much.
much.